What a delightful romp. My goodness, the feel-good film of the year. Oh, man. Okay, you know what you're getting into with certain films. I mean, you watch the trailers for this or anything like that, you know you're not in for a happy-go-lucky time. I mean, but I mean, there are some films, man, you gotta be in a mood to watch this thing. This is bleakness upon bleakness, and you're just, like, by the end, you're so weighed down by it, it's like, oh my God, that was, I'm glad I wasn't in a bad mood when I came and saw this movie. If I came and seen this movie last week, man, woo-hoo-hoo, I'd be crying the whole way home. So yeah, so this is a heavy picture. This is like just putting weight after weight of depressing and unpleasantness on top of you and just letting it crush your skull. And when I say unpleasantness, I don't mean like it's a bad movie at all. It's a good movie. It's a very good movie. I just mean it does not shy away from the ugliness. It really and what makes it all the more heavy, I think, is that they don't go overboard on anything like gore or graphic imagery. It's kind of hinted at. So the depression and the weight you feel and just the whole sense of the film all comes from how it's directed and how it's shot and how it's acted. So, I mean, they create a mood. They really go full out on this one. So if you haven't heard of this one, Jeremy Renner plays a fish and wildlife guy in Wyoming, which is actually Utah. You know, I always find it funny when you learn how one state doubles for another state when they're filming it. I know every time they made a movie in Alaska, there was actually Seattle there for the longest time. But anyway, I'm sorry, I got off topic. So anyway, Jeremy Renner plays this fish and wildlife ranger who comes across a body of a young girl in the snow, like in the middle of nowhere, barefoot. And Elizabeth Olsen plays an FBI agent who comes in to investigate, and the two of them and the local police officer kind of work together to solve the mystery. But the twist kind of being that it happens near a Native American or an Indian reservation, and it's a small town. Reservations aren't even really towns; they're really small little communities, and So yeah, and it is the whole thing kind of mirrors an instance that happened with Jeremy Renner's daughter, a few years back, and all that. So it is it's much less a murder mystery, because there's no real mystery about it. Like, there's not a thing where there's like suspects and kind of, I mean, once they hit upon, kind of who did it, pretty, I mean, not pretty early on, but I mean, it's not like a big shock where it's turned around, oh, it's that guy who's been with us the whole time, he was the killer, it wasn't anything like that. It plays out just more as a series of events. But man, it's heavy. It's heavy. It's a heavy freaking film, man. There's a lot to like about this film. First of all, I talked about it already. I mean, the cinematography and the direction of it are pretty freaking amazing. Again, for taking an area that is really pretty and making it feel just very oppressive and very, almost making it feel claustrophobic in its vastness. I don't know if that makes any sense, even as I say it, but it's the way the film comes off. It's interesting that they make it feel wide and open and lonely, because one of the whole things is that they don't have the people to or the resources to do like this big manhunt or anything like that. They give the whole film that feel, but at the same time, it's this claustrophobic feel if you're in a small community there's only so many people it could be. There's only so many things around, so whoever did it is pretty close. So it's amazing that they do those things, at the same time in some shots. It's really quite ingenious. Acting in this is solid. This is some pretty solid stuff. Jeremy Renner's always been a really good actor. I like him a lot. And that was before the Avengers and all that. I liked him back when he was doing like The Town, and all the way back from when he did an episode of Angel back in the day. So he pulls in a nice solid performance and anchors the film. Elizabeth Olsen, I gotta give her some props. I sometimes wonder if it bugs her sisters that she's a way better actor than either one of them. I still think she's growing. I don't think she's quite on a certain level yet, but I think she's got a good little career ahead of her. I don't know if she's ever going to be Oscar caliber, but she really, the only thing I've ever seen her in are the Avengers films. And, of course she's good in that. It's a comic book movie. She pulls it off. But this is a much tougher role. And I think she does a really great job of it as this young FBI agent. I guess if I had a real quibble about the film, it's that I felt her character was a little too cliche. A little too not so much naive, but the still kind of wet behind the ears female law enforcement officer comes to a strange place, and big manly man has to show her the way. I mean, they give her some balls and some backbone, and she and some really good acting moments, but it just felt like a little bit too much of it was the, okay, little girl, now we're going to go over here and look at this. Oh, you don't know how to dress for the winter. We'll have to take care. I mean, they didn't do it to an extent, but it just felt like they could have made her character a little less helpless, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, because, I mean, she does some pretty badass shit in this. I mean, she takes a shotgun blast to the chest and still, with a bulletproof vest on, and still, knows enough to go around and start fucking people up. So I mean, I'm not trying to say she's a dainty little flower. I'm just saying I think the character could have been written a little bit better. But there are some, and again, there's some moments in here where I don't think she's quite at the higher up level yet. But I think she could get there with a few more movies like this under her belt. There's a really great. The best acting moment of hers, I think, comes at the end of the film when she's in a hospital room. I'm trying not to spoil anything. And is just trying to hold body and soul together for everything she's seen and everything that's happened. And she's just fighting to keep it all together, and she's breaking down bit by bit. It's a really solid piece of acting, and it really hits you with a gut punch. Not that you need another gut punch with this movie. But, it really hits you right at the right time. I think another thing this film does very well, and even though it takes place in Wyoming, one thing I like about it is it felt very, very Alaskan to me. And again, I'm using some weird terminology this review. There's a different set of challenges living in a rural area, and I mean not like rural Tennessee. I mean rural where the weather is 10 times more dangerous in the winter, where the wildlife is much more prominent. There are different challenges, and you don't see that represented on screen very often, and when it is, it's very rarely done well. And while, again, this film does not take place in Alaska, to me, I think it does a great job of representing kind of that life, dealing with extreme cold, dealing with, wildlife, dealing with, sometimes I know some areas of rural Alaska being, very, very isolated. It deals with all that, and I think it does it in a very realistic way. I think the other thing it does very well, because the whole thing takes place on an Indian reservation. The victim was a Native American, and Jeremy Renner's like friends with all these natives. I think, and I'm saying this as a white man, okay, who's only experienced with this, is always going to be once removed. Like I can't experience it firsthand, and in a lot of cases that's good. But I think it did a really good job of depicting some of the hardships and some of the issues facing Native Americans. I honestly believe, and I will debate people on this one. I honestly believe that the most misrepresented people in film or television are the Native Americans. I think they are just... they can never break free of the stereotypes, it feels like. I mean, it speaks volumes. Two things speak volumes. One, it speaks volumes that one of the most prominent Native American characters in the last 10 years, albeit in a shitty film, was played by a white guy. And don't give me this, Johnny Depp was 3/4, 15th, 27th Cherokee. He's a white dude, okay? There's plenty of Native American actors who could have played that role. Not that any of them wanted to, but I say what you want about the original Lone Ranger and its depiction of Native Americans, but at least Tonto was played by an actual Native American. It's a sad thing when our casting principles were a lot better back in the 60s. Okay, and it just feels like they're always the butt of the joke. I mean, this is a culture where, the Washington Redskins are still a thing, and we're all okay with that. Any other race on the planet, there'd be, you'd have to change that right away because of how much it offends everybody. But this, we're all like, what? No, what's your problem? So I really feel coming from where I come from, we were educated about Native Americans and their culture and their lifestyle and all that at a very young age. I remember long classes in elementary school about it. I've had acquaintances all the way up to saying I had friends who were Native most of my life. And I can tell you just from what they have told me and from what little I know from just having, learned about it in school and everything, that what they depict in this film is very, very, very true to life. And I think, for good or ill, I think that's a good thing. I think that needs to be seen by people, just what these people go through. And it's a lot. I mean, and they don't get half the representation that other minorities get concerning, anything. I mean, and at the end of the film, there's this little bumper, and I can tell you right now, it's freaking true, where they're talking about how many Native American women, you can't find statistics on how many of them go missing, because there isn't any. Nobody knows how many are gone. I know for a fact that at least as of last year, the minority with the highest rape level was Native Americans. And it's one of those things where nobody pays attention to any of that stuff. For whatever reason, they don't get the press or the representation that a lot of others do. And I think they lead some hard lives, and they try to live them with as much dignity as they can, but they have a very high rate of alcohol and drug abuse, and nobody kind of sees the hardships that these people go through. And I think this film really tries to depict that in a very sensitive and very honest way. And that's, again, speaking as a white person, speaking as a guy who, this is what I'm assuming, again, from just what little I know. So if there's Native Americans watching this and you've seen this film and you go, no, that's not true at all, then I'll take your word for it as opposed to just the assumptions I'm drawing. So yeah, a very, very, very good film. Not one I think I'd ever watch again or want to buy or anything like that. One I'm glad I saw just for everything it kind of did. But again, it's one of those movies. You gotta be in a mood for it. And I don't know what mood you're in to watch this just kind of on an everyday basis. I hate to say this, I'm gonna sound like a pig, but it's been a long week. The only reason to rewatch this is the 2-second shot of Elizabeth Olsen in a thong. That's about it. Just in terms of rewatch value, because once you've kind of had the experience of it, I don't think that first experience of it can be duplicated. I think it's kind of a very visceral thing, and it needs to kind of exist in the moment. I don't think it really works well on a second viewing. I don't know. I guess that's the only other thing to talk about as I'm kind of heading towards the house here. I said it earlier that the violence and everything in this wasn't gratuitous, which is good. There is a rape scene in this. The rape scene is very brief, and it's the only word I can think of just to use. And I'm not going to use that word. I refuse to use that word in discussing a rape scene. I think the rape scene is as well executed and well done as it can be without becoming gratuitous. A lot of these films that have rape scenes in them, they just show everything and they get really violent. This one, it gives you just enough. You know what's happening. You know what's going on. You know what it kind of does to the character psychologically in the moment, and then it's over. They don't drag it out. And I appreciate that, because my mind is, there are certain things I don't need to see on screen. I'm one of these people, I don't need to see rape scenes. I know what goes on. I wish we'd get rid of movies where we got to see people shit and piss and puke. I know people do that. I don't need to see it. Now, given the type of movie this is and the atmosphere they were going for, they could have pushed that envelope a lot further. And I'm glad they didn't. I think it shows good taste by the director to get just enough in there to, light screen, buddy. Yes, thank you. Anyway, to get just enough in there that you know what happened and moving on. The only way that could have been done better is if they didn't show it. I think the point still could have been made, and we didn't need to see it. And I know it's a weird thing to talk about, but I think in this day and age where we show everything, I mean, we don't shy away from showing anything. It's one of the reasons I don't like horror movies. I'm not a gore fan. I think in this day and age where we show everything, I think it speaks volumes that they chose to show restraint and not feel like they had to go uber gratuitous, just because they can. I think it fit the tone of the movie very well, and I think that deserves to be pointed out. If a rape scene could ever be said to have been done tastefully, I even hate saying that. I'm so sorry. Forget I said that. That's awful. But I think this one, the film didn't feel like it had to push those buttons, even in terms of finding bodies that animals have eaten and whatnot. A lot of films would have shown you everything. This one gives you just enough that you're like, okay, and it's never a thing where you gotta hide your eyes or get a puke bucket, which again I think speaks volumes. They trusted the atmosphere that they were creating to carry the weight of the film more than the need to kind of show you everything like a lot of lesser films would. So this is a good film, and I do recommend seeing it for the performances. Jeremy Ratner is really good, and kind of an I wouldn't say a star turn for Elizabeth Olsen, but one of those performances where you're watching it going, this kid is going to have a pretty good career. She's got some acting chops, maybe not Academy Award caliber, but she's going to do some good things. But you gotta be in a mood, and I don't know who, after a long day, unless you're like me and just you want to go to a movie because it's what you do now. I don't know who gets down the hard day of work and goes, hey, you know what I'd like to go see? That really bleak and kind of depressing film about rape. Yes, sirree, Bob. Give me the extra large popcorn for that one. You know, so might be one to check out if you kind of like those mysteries and very heavy atmosphere films. If you choose to skip it, I understand that, but it's a decent film. It's a good film, good direction, good acting, and a story that I feel doesn't get told enough from a point of view of a people that are very, very misrepresented. So that's it for this one. Hopefully next time we will see something a little bit more cheerful. So until then, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.